Hello and welcome to Make Your Design Matter. I'm Alyssa and I help ambitious, self-employed designers nail their processes, wow their clients, and grow their businesses with confidence.
Wow!
Today we're going to be taking a look at a couple of questions relating to client communications and policies and navigating sticky situations from across the various freelance subreddits. And not all of these questions are specifically asking about freelance design, but we're going to be answering them through the lens of brand and web design. And generally, all of these types of policies and communications and questions can really apply to a pretty wide range of freelance businesses and creative services anyway. And before we dive in, I also want to note that there are really no stupid questions, so some of these things might seem rudimentary if you're a little bit more seasoned in your design business, but everyone's got to start somewhere, and going through some of these questions and answers can definitely help clarify the path forward for anyone who is new to their journey, or even anyone who's been in the game for a while and experiences hiccups in their process as well. So this first question is on r/freelance, and it is, how do you answer your prospect's first contact? I have a landing page where prospects fill out a form and I get it on HubSpot. Should I contact them by phone right away, or by email, or by WhatsApp? I have tried all of them, and sometimes I call and they are busy at the moment and tell me to call them back, and then they don't answer, or they call me back and I'm busy, etc. I prefer email, but I have always heard that there's nothing better than a voice conversation. I'm not good at making small chat and selling myself. So I have been answering by email for years, but sometimes I wonder if I could do better if I called them. How do you guys do it? So there's a couple different questions in here that we can dig into, but the original question was, how do you answer your prospect's first contact? And right off the bat, I will say that I totally agree that a voice conversation is a lot better than an email conversation. You definitely can tell a lot more about what somebody is going to be like to work with by having a verbal conversation or even a face-to-face conversation via video chat with them. And you can also dig deeper and get to the root of what they need and what their goals are a lot better when you're talking in real time versus just through email. So I definitely recommend a voice conversation. But as this person noted, if you just call them out of the blue, you could really catch them off guard, or they might not be available, and then you start that game of phone tag. So what I would recommend is setting up a calendar tool that allows you to schedule meetings with your clients. So once they reach out, you can reply by email and say, thanks for reaching out. I'd love to hear more about this. Here's my calendar, so you can book a time for a phone call and we can talk a little bit deeper.
I have to dig deeper than that.
And most of these tools will allow you to set availability limits, so you can decide if you want to be available, only on Mondays and Thursdays, or only on mornings every day, or whatever you want, so the client can only choose within your availability as well. So that's really nice for maintaining balance in your schedule. That answered the initial question, but this person also mentioned that they're not great at small chat and selling themselves. And I think if anyone else here is like me and a little bit introverted, we can all definitely relate to this.
I'll be in my bedroom, making no noise and pretending that I don't exist.
And I will say that I promise you it gets easier the more you do it, but something that can really help is sort of scripting out what you want to talk about on your sales call so that you're not just going in completely blind. I tend to write out a handful of questions that I know I'm going to want to ask the client, as well as some talking points if I know that they're inquiring about something specific, or I know that I'm going to be trying to sell them on a certain package, and that really can be very helpful. It can also be helpful if you go through some sort of test fake calls with a colleague or a friend just to sort of practice, and you definitely will get better at it the more you do it. And another thing that can help you feel prepared once you do get on the call with a client is making sure that you have enough information up front. So this person didn't really specify what information they're receiving through that form that they get on HubSpot, but at the bare minimum, you definitely want to know, the client's name, what their business is called, what their business does, their website, as well as a description of the type of project that they need help with, what they're looking for. And that is probably the bare minimum amount of information that can help you understand, okay, they're this type of business and they might need this type of package that I offer, and have a couple specific questions when you get on the phone. Some other deeper questions that you might consider asking could be about their budget or their timeline, as well as, why they decided to reach out, what their goals are, things like that, that can essentially pre-vet the client and let you know if you even have the capacity to help them, as well as the interest in what they're looking for.
That's a lot.
So I hope to help clarify a little bit about how to move forward after receiving an inquiry. This next question is from r/freelancers, and it is, I've got a very difficult client I can't drop. Is there such a thing as a performance improvement plan for a client? I have a client who is a returning client. We've been friends for years. I was worried about doing this job because he just wasn't engaged in getting our contract done, and I felt like that indicated he'd be checked out and communicate poorly during our season. He wrote season, maybe he means session. But I agree with that assessment. Red flag.
Very bad feeling about this.
I tend to have a good nose for that kind of thing and often refuse clients like that, but this is a friend. I've worked with him before, and to be honest, I really need the work right now, so I just said, "F it." But I was totally right. He's been so difficult. No follow through, not responding, really hard to stay aligned. Just not holding up his end. The thing I can't stand the most is when clients don't communicate. I agree. And I'm super clear about my expectations. I literally make them sign a norms form document up front. In my kind of work, we really need to be aligned, and my clients get that and appreciate that, and that allows me to do my best work. Same. This guy keeps telling me he'll do better and then doesn't, but I can't afford to drop him right now. I'm considering trying to do a performance improvement plan with him like I would with a struggling employee. Has anyone tried anything like that? Any other advice other than drop him because I can't afford to bail this one time? It all feels so frustrating and pathetic. Well, I definitely want to empathize with this person because I'm sure that we have all been in a situation like this where we're trying to move the project forward and the client is just dragging their feet. We've all been there, unfortunately. And as much as we want to try and give the advice to turn away work when it seems like it's going to be a bad fit, the reality is, like this person said, sometimes you really need the money, and so you are kind of weighing, is it worth the headache or is it worth saying no and not having the money? And in this person's case, it sounded like they really needed the money. I also want to point out that this person, it sounds like they do have a very good red flag radar. Like he had a sense that this might be a difficult client. And I think that in the beginning, when this person noticed that, that would have been a good time to put some preventative measures in place.
I will have order.
So this person mentioned that they had their client sign a norms form up front, and I'm not quite sure what exactly a norms form involves. It sounds like it could be something that has to do with how they agree to work together or policies or something like that. But what is really foolproof for a situation like this is having a dormancy clause in your contract as well as a communications policy. So the dormancy clause states that after a certain number of days of not receiving communications or lack of forward movement on the project, so the client could be communicating with you but just not giving you what you need for a certain period of time, you have the right to put the project on hold, and then it can only be scheduled for your next availability, and there's a project restart fee required to do that. Your communications policy can state how many days they have to respond to emails and provide feedback on design proofs. So mine actually states that my clients are required to give feedback and respond to all communications within 2 business days. And if they don't do that, then again, the project may need to be put on hold and rescheduled with a fee. Now, obviously, sometimes things come up, emergencies could happen. I'm not going to reschedule the project if the client is a day or 2 late on feedback here and there. But what I really want to avoid is having a week between responses and the project starting to drag out weeks and weeks. So that can really, really help. And you can have your client initial next to that in your contract so that you can be sure that they've read it. And on top of that, after the client books a project, I actually have a video chat welcome meeting with them where I review those policies again verbally, so we can super double check that they understand that and absorb that information. And when you're super clear up front, when you've got it in the contract, when you've got it in that verbal welcome meeting and you reiterated it a couple times, then it becomes a lot easier to put your foot down when situations come up later, because there's no way that the client missed that information. And when you got that policy in your contract and the client initialed next to it and you're stating it verbally face to face with them and you've maybe mentioned it a couple other times, it becomes a lot harder for them to push back on it later or say that they didn't know about it, and it also becomes a lot easier for you to enforce it because you've already mentioned it so many times.
You have no power here.
So that is a great preventative measure for clients dragging things out. If you're in the situation and you don't have this policy in your contract and it hasn't been discussed, what you can try is just mentioning, I've got other work coming down the pipeline, and if we don't finish this project by X date, I'm gonna need to put it on hold and reschedule it for this date. And sometimes that can kind of light the fire under the client to get you what they need, because they don't want their project to be delayed even more, even though they are the one delaying it. You can also try implementing a rescheduling fee and just mentioning that it's a new policy. It may be a little bit more difficult to enforce and you might experience a little bit more pushback though if you didn't already have that in your contract once they started the project. Other than that, for this person, what I would recommend is honestly just constant follow-up, constant checking in, constant pushing the client along, because it sounds like this client needs that extra hand-holding, and this poster kind of saw this coming, and I would honestly just kind of take this as a lesson learned to implement these policies for next time. And for now, it's going to require a lot of extra work to just kind of push the project along and get it done. This next question is also on r/freelance, and it is, what are some average expectations for how a website affects businesses' sales? I'm a new freelancer and want to start talking to potential clients about how a website will help them. I have read online about how a website helps a business, for example, visibility, accessibility, credibility, etc., and have read about various statistics. For example, 98% of people look online for products or services. These are all great, but I find it hard to translate that into more relevant numbers for a freelancing pitch. It's significant that 98% of people look online for products, and not having a website cuts you out of that huge demographic. But I'd like to be able to talk to business owners and say something like, if you had a more modern website, you could get X more customers in the door every month. I know that statements like this are very situation dependent, but are there any rules of thumb or people with experience that know how to estimate bottom line results like that? So my answer to this is actually, I would not guarantee specific numbers like that. As this person did state, statements like that are very situation dependent. And I would not recommend guaranteeing something that you actually have no control over, because someone can have the most beautiful website design in the world, it can work great, it can be very user-friendly and accessible, but there's so many other factors that influence a customer's decision to buy that are outside the website. For example, they could have really poor copy, and as the designer, you're not writing the copy most of the time, and that has nothing to do with you. They could have a great website that converts customers once they land on the website. However, they could have very poor SEO and marketing strategies, so people aren't finding the website. They could also be providing a really bad customer experience or a not great product, and that affects their ability to sell new ones because people haven't had a good experience with them. And that's totally outside of your control. So I would really avoid any promises about specific numbers. I think it's great to look into statistics like this person mentioned about how many people look online for products and services and things like that, and use that in your marketing. However, what's really going to help you sell web design services to your client is specificity, really learning about the specific client's business, their goals and their needs and their target audience, and then shifting your proposal to specifically answer how you're going to help them with those things. So for example, if a client says that they're getting a lot of people landing on their site, but not a lot of people converting into customers, that's something you can potentially help them solve through website design. You can take a look at what on their website is not making them click that shop button. If the client talks about wanting their website to feel more professional, wanting their business to feel more legit and in line with their competitors, that's absolutely something that your website can help them accomplish. At the same time, if a client tells me that they want to get more website visitors, that's not something I can solve with web design. So I'm actually very upfront about the fact that we can certainly have an influence over what happens when people land on the website, but I'm not able to increase their website traffic. That's something that an SEO or marketing person has to help them with. And being honest and upfront with clients like that is actually something that they really, really appreciate.
I'm going to be honest.
They don't want empty promises. So again, in conclusion, I would recommend just having that sales call with your client, really getting to know what they need, and then catering your proposal to that. This next question is, how late do you let a client hold? And by hold, this person means kind of hold a spot in the calendar. And here's what this person said. They have been shooting with a client for 2 weeks. And by shooting, I believe that they mean they've been going back and forth with this client. And tomorrow it's still holding. They keep saying they'll let me know soon if they want to move forward, I believe. How late should I tolerate this if it's getting down to the wire?
One eternity later.
So the question is, how long do you let a client hold space in your calendar to book, essentially? And my answer to this is you don't. If they want to book with you, they need to pay a retainer and they need to sign a contract. And without those 2 items, you're not holding space for them. It's essentially first come, first serve. If you hold a spot in your calendar with the expectation that a client is going to book you, once that time comes, they have absolutely no obligation. They have no stake in the game. They absolutely can just kind of be like, never mind, we don't need this anymore, or actually we can't afford it, we're not going to do it. And then you have potentially turned away other clients that had been interested in that time slot, and or it may now be so late that you're not able to find a new client to book that time slot. So the answer to that is just a flat out, you don't. You tell them you need the retainer in the contract in order to book. This last question is something that is asked in lots of different forms across lots of different subreddits. And this one in particular is on r/graphic design. The question is, how hard is it to move to the US and get clients fast? This person said, I'm thinking about moving and I would like to work as a designer there. How hard would it be for me to start getting good clients? And then they went on to say, I live in Argentina. It's pretty tough here if you don't own your own design studio and contacts with big companies. Small businesses don't invest in services like advertising or branding. Okay, so the things that this person expressed experiencing in Argentina is something that a lot of people all over the world experience. I don't think it's very country specific. You know, you can be living in a big city and be having trouble getting clients. But the question here is, how hard is it to get clients fast? If you are focusing on speed and trying to get as many clients as you can and trying to make as much money as you can, that could potentially work in the short term, but it's not going to be sustainable. And to be honest, when you start out on a freelance journey, it is often not a fast process. It is a long-term game. It's not something that you should be thinking about doing if you're, just trying to make money fast, because the likelihood of that happening is very slim. It is not uncommon for it to take 6 months to a year to feel like you're starting to get a steady stream of clients and a steady income as well. Building a business takes time, it takes dedication, and it takes long-term relationship building. It's not something that you can just build from 0 to 100 in a week. And if you're focused on getting a lot of clients fast, the clients that are actually going to be good, valuable clients are actually going to see right through that. And again, this is not going to be sustainable for your business. Like I mentioned, this question is asked a lot. There are a lot of people on Reddit asking, what can I do to make a lot of money fast? What can I do to get a lot of clients really fast? What skill is most profitable? Things like that. And the decision to start a freelance design business should be extremely intentional, and you should be aware of the fact that it's going to be a long-term game. And you should be aware of the fact that it is an investment of time and resources and even money. Sure, there are instances of people starting out and having instant financial success, but that is not the norm, unfortunately. So I hope that you found some of these tips helpful and might be able to implement some of these policies that we talked about into your own design practice. If you have any questions about running a self-employed design business, leave a comment below. I would love to answer a question on a future video.